Barb, Vicky, and Billie Jean, the girls in the office, all thought David McAllister was the hottest thing they had ever seen in pants. And though I didn't exactly voice my opinion on the subject, it wouldn't be appropriate, I don't think, for the office manager to do so, I must confess, confidentially, that I could feel my heart shift gears noticeably whenever he walked in. "He's wonderful," said Barb, 1,000 times, holding a hand to her throat and closing her eyes. "He's absolutely marvelous. He's perfect." Barb is the oldest one, in her mid-50s, and married. "That doesn't mean I'm not a good judge," she says. "Experience counts for something. I tell you, that man is what we used to call a dreamboat." She was speaking to all of us in general, but I knew her remarks were intended for my benefit. I did my best to attend to my work and ignore her overly pronounced hint. "Barbara," I wanted to tell her sometimes, "I don't need coaching. I'm perfectly capable of whatever." Vicky and Billie Jean are much younger. I think of them as being teenagers the way they act, but they're in their mid-20s. It was interesting to witness their reaction to David, since he must be 10 years older than they are, not that he looks it. They giggle after he leaves, a sure sign of approval. "He's a major hunk," Vicky says. She's the more aggressive of the two. "If he asked me out, I'd go in a heartbeat," said Billie Jean. Funny, I thought to myself. I was just thinking the same thing. Instead, I said, "Let's get back to work, shall we? We've got those reports due out by 5 o'clock. We don't know that much about David. This is a 72-story building. We know he works here. We know he's a single parent because he came by with a petition for creating a daycare center in the building. Costs would be defrayed by the tenants. Barb is the only one of us with children, and hers are grown, so I didn't sign the petition. But we did learn that David has a little girl, and is not married. That news caused a stir in his wake. I also took note single men who are not gay or hideously deformed physically, emotionally, or socially being a rare find these days. Not that I personally harbor any illusions, about getting married or anything. Not at this point. I'm more practical than that. It's not a priority, and I'm comfortable with my life. Of course, if it happened to happen, it would happen. But I don't expect it will. Which is not to say I wouldn't like to go out with a guy. He is drop-dead handsome and charming. He's gorgeous. He's got a wonderful sense of humor. He's got manners. He's the type who lights up a room, And the capper for me is that British accent. I hear that and all I can think is, "Take me, I'm yours." David seems to be something of an activist, which could be all right. After the daycare petition, he came by for the United Way and then the Fine Arts Fund. And he would stay and chat and flirt a bit, and one day, for no reason, he brought some donuts and gave Barb a kiss on the cheek, and after he left, she said, "Oh, I swear I am never going to wash this cheek." I said, "Why, Barbara, you're a married woman." "Don't remind me," she said, "not right now." Oh, the girls would talk about him for hours, speculate on who he was, what he did. Lacking actual facts, their imaginations ran rampant. David must be something special, and he had to do something special, too. It had to be something very sophisticated and elegant, not like banking or insurance. "He's no lawyer, I can tell you that," said Vicky. "I've dated enough lawyers to know." They had him figured for some kind of lord who was in this country on business, rather like an ambassador. When they'd ask me, I'd just roll my eyes to chide them for getting so carried away, for acting so silly. But the way he acted, so smooth, without being glib, so debonair, I could half believe he came from some aristocratic stock. Not that I said anything to that effect. I just listened to them fantasize about him. And it came to pass, I use the biblical reference advisedly, that there was some action among the tenants in the building with regard to renegotiating our leases with the owner, or some such thing. Whatever it was is not important. What it meant was an excuse to ask David out to lunch after he came by with a petition to discuss whatever was needed to be discussed. And I let it drop one morning, as casually as I could, that I would be having lunch with David McAllister. That was perfectly regular. I had to let Barb know so she could put it on the calendar, since it was a business luncheon. And you can imagine their reaction. They weren't fooled for a moment. "Go for it, girl," said Vicky, and I had to smile, though I covered it with a slight frown and a shake of my head.